Today's topic is hierarchical condition categories, otherwise known as HCCs. HCCs, simply put, is a risk adjustment model that uses an individual's demographics and all their diagnoses to determine a risk score. And that risk score is a relative measure of how costly that individual is expected to be throughout the year. There are 78 HCCs comprised of more than 3,500 diagnoses. Some HCCs rank higher than others and will eliminate lesser codes. For instance, if you had diabetes with a chronic condition, you're obviously excluded from the HCC diabetes without a chronic condition. Now, some HCCs are additive. More on that in just a minute. These special HCCs add an additional risk score. For instance, COPD has a risk score of 0.346, CHF has a risk score of 0.368. If a patient has both, they get the additive HCC, namely called COPD/CHF, that gives them an additional risk score of 0.259 for a total of 0.973, much higher than the original risk scores. As we said before, an individual's HCCs are based on their demographics and their diagnoses. Those diagnoses are grouped together into HCCs, which change from year to year. They may add a diagnosis to an HCC, or they may remove a diagnosis from an HCC. But what's interesting to note is that a patient's risk score is based upon the diagnoses of the previous year. So what you diagnose this year will impact their risk score next year. So why is this important? Well, the ACO financial benchmarks are based on the expected healthcare costs of their assignees. And if you remember, risk scores are directly correlated to healthcare costs. So let's do a little math. If our 2014 ACO benchmark cost for a non-dual beneficiary was $8,374 and their risk score was a 0.671, their expected cost for the year would be $5,619. If they had a risk score of 1.801, that cost increases to $15,082. This higher predicted cost makes it much easier for an ACO to realize shared savings. Let's look at a case study of this 75-year-old gentleman. He goes into the doctor and he has the flu.